Hello, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome all the participants, our distinguished guests, and our online audience from Brazil and Russia to our seminar on the BRICS coverage in mass media, perspectives from Brazil and Russia. This seminar is a joint initiative launched by the School of Architecture, Arts, Communication, and Design, Faac, at São Paulo State University, Unesp, and of the Department of Media at the HSE University in St. Petersburg. I am Francisco Belda. I am a professor in the journalism program and at the graduate program in media technology at Unesp. Today, I am the co-host of this seminar alongside my colleague, Professor Oksana Arutiunian, head of the media department and associate professor at St. Petersburg School of Arts and Humanities at the HSE University. Our seminar is being live streamed on YouTube for Brazilian and Russian audiences, thanks to the outstanding support and professionalism of my colleague and friend Paulo Corral in managing our conference and streaming platform. Thanks, Paulo. Your work here is essential to our success. And now I would like to express my deep gratitude to local authorities of Unesp School of Arts, Communication, Architecture, and Design, Faac, and also to the authorities of the Department of Media and of the Office of Multilateral Strategic Projects at the HSE University in St. Petersburg. At Unesp, this seminar would not be possible without the support and dedication of several individuals whom I have the privilege to acknowledge now. I want to thank Professor Juarez Xavier, Director of Faac. I want to thank Professor Tarsila Lima da Costa, Deputy Director of Faac, Professor Cristina Gobi, Head of the Department of Journalism, Professor Denis Renaud, coordinator of our journalism program, and also Luisa Banhara, supervisor of ISTAEP, our Office for Research Support, and Mr. José Neves, who leads the International Relations Office, ERAP, at Faac, Unesp. I also want to thank Jean Adilson Calça, a member of the organizing committee for the Journalism Week at Faac, and all the students, faculty members, and other community members, both at Faac and HSE University, who follow us today. To provide some context and explain the rationale for our seminar, I would like to recall the visit of the HSE University delegation to Faac, which happened in April this year, organized by the International Office at São Paulo State University. And that moment was very special because it was then that we decided and conceptualized the idea for this seminar. It was then followed by a singular opportunity to organize the seminar as a part of the Faac Journalism Week starting today, with dozens of sessions from learning and networking opportunities with the participation of journalists and researchers from all over Brazil. Our goal in this seminar is to discuss the relevance of BRICS in current political affairs and economic agendas in different perspectives from media outlets, both in Brazil and Russia. As introduction topics, I would like to frame our discussions today within a unique and updated context, one that is profoundly affecting journalism and during a pivotal moment of our politics and economic agendas. As we all know, BRICS nations, Russia, Brazil, China, India, South Africa, and other new members that recently gathered in the last BRICS summit held in Brazil this year, are currently facing major challenges within complex landscapes of international affairs. We are witness a significant and unprecedentedly rapid transformation in news coverage, which is impacting how global power shifts are reflected in evolving BRICS media narratives, moving beyond commerce to embrace other strategic dimensions. Journalists and their audience now live and interact under the powerful influence of digital media platforms and the dominance of big tech companies, while China and the US compete for technological dominance in this context. Alongside the rise of artificial intelligence and growing concerns about trust and the sustainability of both traditional media brands and independent outlets, these developments are fundamentally reshaping journalism and information flows. In Brazil, as in other countries, intense policy debates are underway regarding regulation of media platforms, while our young and still fragile democracy is experiencing delicate circumstances highlighted by the Supreme Court's conviction of a former president for crimes against democracy just last week. This was underlined in an op-ed by President Lula published yesterday in the New York Times, which also addressed disinformation, online fraud, and the harassment of children and teenagers on social media, as well as unprecedented threats to Brazil posed by actions from the US government. Given this and other shifting dynamics, it's important to ask, how do recent developments in news media intersect with BRICS political agendas and diplomacy? What are the broader implications for media coverage, journalistic practices, and the global exercise of soft power? To debate and present their perspectives on the broader issue of BRICS coverage in mass media, I want to invite, present, and thank our guest speakers, highlighting their credentials and topics. We have here Professor Danilo Rothberg, Professor and Deputy Coordinator of the Journalism Program at Unesp, Professor in the Graduate Program in Communications at Unesp, and the Scientific Director of COMPOS, the Brazilian National Association of Graduate Programs in Communication. Danilo will address the topic of BRICS in the headlines toward a more balanced global media representation. I also want to thank and introduce Mr. Anton Vilchinsky, journalist, correspondent, interpreter at the Spanish Department of News Agents TASS in Moscow. He will address the issue of media coverage of educational cooperation within BRICS by Russian media, challenges and opportunities. I also want to present Mr. Igor Patrick, also a journalist, columnist for Folha de S.Paulo, one of the main media brands in Brazil, and correspondent for the South China Morning Post, with experience in politics, international affairs, and human rights. He will address the topic of challenges of covering China from Brazil and Latin America. I also want to thank and acknowledge Professor Valeriia Gorbacheva, Deputy Director of the BRICS Expert Council of Russia and head of the Office for Multilateral Strategic Projects at the HSE University in St. Petersburg, who will talk about the myths in understanding BRICS and how to go beyond these myths. So I would now like to invite Professor Oksana Arutiunian, head of the Department of Media at HSE University, and our co-host today to share her acknowledgements and opening remarks. This will be followed by each speaker's 15 minutes presentation at the following order: First Danilo, then Anton, then Igor, finishing with Valeriia. Session will close with a brief Q&A, and thank once again all of our participants and viewers for having us today. So I now invite Professor Oksana for her opening statements and to present HSE's role in this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's international seminar. And I would like to add just some words of gratitude to our rector, Nikita Anisimov, director of HSE University, to the director of HSE in St. Petersburg, Anna Tashevskaya, also to the head of our international office, Maria Kiselova, and the dean of our faculty, School of Arts and Humanity, Adrian Selin. Our aim today is to explore how BRICS countries are represented in the media, both globally and domestically. This is a particularly timely conversation, I think, as media narratives shape not only public opinion, but also international relations and policy perspectives. We are honored to be joined by a distinguished panel of experts and practitioners from both countries, who will offer valuable insight into how the BRICS agenda is framed, perceived, and communicated through journalism. So I think that we can start. Francisco?
Thank you, Oksana. So I now invite Professor Danilo Rothberg for his presentation.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It's an honor to be here today with you. And I would like to thank you so much, the organizers, for having me, and it's great to be here. So I hope to not exceed the 15 minutes that were gratefully granted to me. And let me see here. Okay, just a minute. Okay, now we go. Yes. Just a minute. Yeah. So I guess you can see my screen now. And this is the title that the short presentation I have for you today. And it's called The BRICS in the Headlines for a More Balanced Global Media Representation. Well, let just me warn you that this is a perspective coming from research I have been conducting over the subject. And as I am a professor of sociology of communication at Unesp, this is what I have for you today. And I used a database which was composed by a comprehensive search conducted across over 170 million research papers, and I used artificial intelligence tool to include sources from many databases, and in total almost 1,000 papers were identified, and only the top 50 most relevant papers are summarized here. So of course that all the lines that I'm bringing for you today are not coming from my opinions, but mainly from academic scientific research. And the image, the illustrations you have here on screen were also made by IA, right? So I used lots of art styles for conveying the image of a harmonic BRICS block. And we noticed from the data that the influence of media framing on international perceptions of BRICS is very well documented in recent scholarship. And I don't think it's a surprise to see that studies show that the way BRICS is portrayed through the selection of themes, narratives, and frames may shape, of course, how global audiences potentially interpret the bloc's intentions, unity, and significance. And you can see here a BRICS image on your left, made from IA, and it's very nice to see that the BRICS can be represented in some different ways. So studies also show that the way BRICS is portrayed may shape global audiences, as Western media often highlight BRICS as a geopolitical challenger to the West, focusing on issues like de-dollarization and global order disruption, potentially caused by the bloc's intentions. And the studies show that Russian media use BRICS coverage to project national identities and collective resistance to Western hegemony, influencing international perceptions of the group's ambitions. And on the other hand, in Latin America, BRICS is generally framed positively, fostering a favorable perception among developing countries. Also, the studies show that narrative misalignments and ambiguity between the BRICS countries can undermine the effectiveness of frames and strategic narratives used by BRIC countries to construct a collective identity and project their vision of a fairer, multipolar world order. This is very interesting finding, because otherwise we could think that something different would happen. So studies show how the BRICS countries could join collective effort to try to frame their project more positively. Because as you can see here on the screen, while some media environments, for example, in Latin America, offer pluralistic views, the overall framing, whether positive, critical, or focused on specific themes, may impact how BRICS is perceived internationally, either as a force for cooperation or a disruptive bloc. So I guess there is room for improvement, for cooperation among BRICS countries in order to be more portrayed by global media as a force for cooperation. And I am happy to say that this is the dominant frame that we found in Latin America. Not only, of course, in Latin America, but I'm happy to see that Latin America was found among the regions in the globe presenting a positive portrait of BRICS countries. There are high quality comparative analysis and content studies providing robust evidence that these frames may influence public opinion, policy discourse, and international relations. So as you can see, it's a subject comprised by journalism studies in a way, and we hope that the effectiveness of BRICS strategic narratives may sometimes we regret that the effectiveness of BRICS strategic narratives is sometimes limited by internal diversity and narrative misalignment, which is something that can be further expanded to the maybe the press advisory of governments throughout the world, and mainly the BRICS countries. Because we think that a pluralistic media environment offer opportunities for more inclusive and representative framing. But challenges remain in achieving balanced and coherent international messaging. And I will talk in a minute about these challenges and how we can maybe overcome them. Research also shows that global news coverage of the BRICS countries tends to be shaped by traditional international news structures, national interests, of course, and a shared focus on challenging Western dominance. China and Russia, of course, because of their size and the economic and political power throughout the world, tends to dominate media attention, while economic cooperation and geopolitical themes are central across all member states. But again, China and Russia receive the most coverage in the BRICS media and in the global media, right? Not only in the BRICS media, with China often linked to economic topics and Russia to security and conflict. Brazil, on the other hand, has lower visibility and is mainly discussed within the BRICS context, in the BRICS media coming from China and Russia, and some of the global media. Sometimes the studies include a lot of outlets, and so this is the general outcomes of lots of studies. So it's a kind of an average analysis, right? Okay, so then we come to realize that global news flows reflect traditional structures because coverage is often centered on trade partners, neighbors, and elite nations rather than balanced South-South communication. And that's mainly an obstacle that we really have to focus on and try to address as we progress over the years. Correspondent authored articles are more common in Chinese and Russian newspapers, but overall, cross-BRICS media footprints remain limited. So again, there is a lot of room for cooperation and seeking to change this media landscape. Okay, we noticed the results show that economic and geopolitical cooperation are consistently highlighted, especially around BRICS summits and expansion. So, of course, that we expected the BRICS summits to be some of the highlights of the coverage. All member country newspapers emphasize BRICS as a platform for multilateralism and counterweight to Western influence. And that's a very, very positive outcome, right? I think you can agree with me about that, and we can discuss it later. Media frames reflect national interests. Each country's press brings unique priorities, with some focusing on domestic political factors and the implications of BRICS membership. And that's something interesting too. So what can we say about the alternative perspectives and global influence? And now I'm going to the last 5 minutes of this presentation. So let me summarize it for you. We noticed that the studies show that coverage promotes dialogue and potentially stakeholder coherence, aiming to foster cross-cultural understanding and informed civic discourse within and beyond the BRICS countries. And the BRICS coverage offers an alternative to Western-centric narratives, emphasizing the group's struggle for recognition and the need for more balanced global media representation. The key challenges in achieving more balanced news coverage include persistent dominance of China and Russian media agendas, reliance on Western news sources, and limited cross-BRIC journalistic collaboration. And well, of course, that this is a point of view coming from Brazil, right? Because studies show that Brazil could be more, it could achieve a more balanced representation for South and South collaborations. China and Russia dominate news coverage, and others receive much less attention. And this creates an imbalance where BRICS is often perceived as a China-Russia centric alliance. And this could be potentially marginalizing the voices and issues of the other members, maybe. Again, coverage is shaped by national interests, trade relationships, and geopolitical relevance. And these leads to selective reporting that prioritizes elite nations, conflict zones, and major trade partners over a more balanced representation of all BRICS members. There are internal differences in political, economic, and media systems, of course, and that includes territorial disputes, development priorities, and governance models further hinder the creation of a unified or balanced media narrative across BRICS countries. So I'm going through the final slides here, and which are the obstacles then toward a more balanced global media representation, right? Which is the title of my talk here today with you. So there is a reliance on Western media and limited South-South flows. That's one of the major problems because BRICS media often depends on Western news agencies for international coverage and then rarely citing each other's outlets. And this tends to perpetuate the dominance of global North perspectives and limits the development of independent South-South news flows. And the obstacles also comprise challenges in gaining global trust and influence because of there is a lack of cross-BRIC journalistic networks. Studies show that there are few correspondents and limited cross-border reporting among BRICS countries, which tends to restrict the depth and diversity of coverage, and that would weaken the potential for mutual understanding and balanced representation within the bloc. So just for a conclusion here, which are the research gaps and the open research questions, right? So this is the final slide. And the literature shows that despite robust evidence on the influence of media framing, there are gaps remaining in the understanding the long-term effects of these frames, the role of digital and social media, and the impact of intra-BRICS media exchange on international perceptions. And as open research questions, we have that future research should explore the evolving role of digital and social media, and also the long-term effects of media framing and the mechanisms of intra-BRICS media exchange in shaping international perceptions. Yes, that's it for today. We have a final image here, an illustration meaning the future of BRICS portrayed by AI in a very futuristic approach. This is my email, and again, many thanks for listening, and it's great to join you today. And that's all for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Danilo, for setting the stage with such thought-provoking perspective on media balance and global narratives. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Anton Vilchinsky, correspondent, interpreter at the Spanish department of the news agency TASS. His talk will address a key yet often overlooked aspect of BRICS cooperation, education. Please welcome Anton Vilchinsky with his presentation, Media Coverage of Educational Cooperation within BRICS by Russian Media, Challenges and Opportunities, bringing direct experience from one of Russia's key international news platforms.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your kind invitation. It's a great honor for me to be here and to present my research on media coverage of educational cooperation within BRICS. Let me turn on my presentation. One second. So here we go with the presentation. First of all, I would like to introduce myself a bit more. I have over 3 years of journalistic experience in TASS. I have been working in various departments, and currently I'm a correspondent in the Spanish department of this news agency, and I covered various events within BRICS at different levels, and the most interesting part was last year's summit in Kazan, and I covered the visit of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who flew to Russia for the first time in many years. And at the same time, together with my colleagues, with my team, we took interviews of various experts and also various professionals of the sphere. So I'd like to share my experience both professionally and academically, as I have over 10 years of experience at the academic track. So here I'll try to combine both professional and academic approach. Let's start with the plan of the presentation. We'll start with a brief overview of the BRICS today. Then we'll move on to educational cooperation and its importance for BRICS today, how it helps to promote cooperation and to move on. Whereas BRICS has doubled its membership over recent years. Then we'll talk about media landscape in Russia, and then we'll finish with challenges and ways forwards and conclusion. What does BRICS mean today? So as you all know, we have now 10 permanent members within BRICS. The number of members has doubled over the recent years, and it sets new challenges for us. It gives new opportunities, but also gives us new tasks. And here you may see that we have tasks for media, for policymakers, and for expert community. We have to work together. Media should provide tools, raise awareness, cover events, give certain assistance to the platform. At the same time, policymakers should stimulate functional cooperation at different levels, not only at the highest level, at the presidential level, but also within local levels like education, like media cooperation, scientific cooperation, and other things that really help people on the ground, help people in everyday lives. And then expert community, they should try to provide guidelines, they should try to help and highlight directions of further development of BRICS. And as Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Mikhail Rybkov, mentioned, that BRICS is an archipelago of stability in a raging sea of circumstances. It would be interesting to mention that he said this phrase back in 2019. So 6 years passed. Nevertheless, I think this phrase is still relevant. Why educational cooperation can be a driver of BRICS? As I mentioned, with the growth of BRICS, with its 10 members now, there is a need to bypass numerous political divisions between China and India, between African countries. We have so many cultures, and there is a need to find proper balanced area that would neglect certain problems, certain conflict zones between the countries, and education is the one. And education in its essence is collaborative, and it has focus on future. It focuses on the development of our economies. And then it will have practical implications for all the members of the platform, as education and exchange of experience will help to prepare new talents, prepare new professionals for the growing economies of BRICS countries. And finally, educational cooperation will contribute to the development of person-to-person ties, actually what we are now doing today right here on the platform of a university. And here we see how educational cooperation actually works in real life. What is educational cooperation in BRICS? There are two tracks: bilateral track, which is essentially more developed, and multilateral track that we should develop actually within the BRICS. So we should focus on two major platforms within the network. It's the BRICS Network University. By the way, we are now celebrating its 10th anniversary because it was established back in 2015. It's about higher education, about universities, and at the same time we have the BRICS Alliance for Vocational and Educational Training. It's the so-called TWET Alliance. It's about vocational education, it's about professional education, and it's important to cooperate in not only in a scientific area, but also in professional area when we develop skills in real life. So then we should talk about media coverage within Russia. I will start my presentation. So let's move on to the second part of the presentation. It's about brief overview of the media landscape in Russia. We have various types of media platforms, and they're all different, and they have different requirements in terms of content, in terms of work of press services, work of journalists, and we cannot find a one-fit-all approach, and it's very important to consider this landscape. First of all, there are news agencies. And the most prominent ones are TASS, Russia Today, and Faac, which is focused on economic affairs, economic issues. And then we have internet portals like RBK, like Sputnik, like Komsomolskaya Pravda. They have less speed, less news urgency. At the same time, they have more in-depth analysis, and they need another type of content. They need more analytical approach. They are not about just facts, but also about processing facts. Then we have TV, traditional kind of media, which is now losing momentum, but at the same time, it's also important to consider that TV is also still very popular among adults, among much experienced people, much experienced experts. Then we have Telegram channels, which are on the rise, and they're gaining tractions in younger audience. And it's very important if we talk about education cooperation promotion, we need to focus on Telegram channels as our target audience is there. And finally, we have newspapers, where established traditional ones, again, they are less rapid, they have less urgency, but they very high reliability. And it's also about experts. And then we have some data about which types of media are more established and more famous. We have top 3 most cited Russian news agencies as of July 2025. We have TASS, RIA Novosti, and Interfax. And at the same time, if we talk about social networks, their perspective is slightly different. RIA Novosti gets the top place, and then you may see other prominent Russian media platforms, newspapers, and different media outlets. Another important thing to consider is where do people get information in Russia? According to Russian Consulting Bureau in Sociology, Weber, you may see that as of July 2025, websites of media outlets are the most popular source of information. Then goes Telegram and TV. Social networks are still on the 4th place, but it's a growing area. We have also specialized platforms. We have platforms that promote content in Spanish. We have media about education, which is not famous at all. We have Telegram channels about education, but they have nothing to do with the younger generation. So they cannot be used as tools to promote education cooperation. And we are now moving to the main challenges in terms of media promotion. First of all, it's low awareness of progress in educational cooperation. Unfortunately, media barely touch upon events that are beyond annual meetings of BRICS Ministers of Education. They take place every year, and then we simply forget about covering education. I'll show you it a bit later. Then we have priority to political events. As Professor Danilo Rothberg mentioned, there is no balanced approach. We only focus on geopolitical tensions, we focus on high-key summits, we focus on declarations, we focus on results at the highest level, neglecting lower-level cooperation. Then we have dependence on chairmanship. If Russia is the chair of BRICS, then the whole year is devoted to BRICS. We have special keywords, we have special KPI, we have special tasks to cover BRICS. Once BRICS is done, then we have less activity. And I think another country which takes the chairmanship, this country starts to promote BRICS. But we need to cooperate here in terms of media. Then, again, as Professor Rothberg mentioned, there is low interaction between international media outlets. Media within BRICS, they work separately. They barely exchange contents, they barely exchange materials, they hardly can produce something together, they work on their own, and it's a problem again. And then reporting on the BRICS Network University progress requires contacting universities in different countries. It requires certain expertise, it requires knowledge of languages. And again, not all the reporters are ready to cover this kind of thing. Then here is, in Russian, kind of content analysis of what we have in our news agency TASS by using keywords BRICS and university, starting from January 1st, 2024 with the Russian presidency up to the 13th of September this year. With these keywords, we have only 16 materials. And you may see that the vast majority was on the 17th of October when we had this meeting of BRICS Ministers of Education in Russia. So the vast majority of news was published at that very moment. Then we have BRICS education keywords. We have 88 materials in our database for 1.5 years, slightly more, but still you see that in summer 2025, only like some 5+ materials. And if we talk about Network University of BRICS, we have only one material published in 2024, dedicated to the Russian chairmanship, and nothing else. We have barely touched activities of Network University of BRICS in TASS. So possible ways forward. First of all, there is a need to establish a joint platform between the BRICS University, BRICS Network University, and the Alliance for TWET. There is a need to establish an online platform which will give explicit information for students, for professionals who are eager to get education and to get new knowledge in different countries within the BRICS bloc. So this platform should have the whole database of possible programs, price lists, opportunities, advantages, disadvantages. So it should be like a guidance for those who want to study abroad in BRICS Network University or in Alliance for TWET. Then there is a need to create electronic network of professionals who studied in Russia, for example. Then they graduated from our universities, they came back to their country, and actually, well, the connections are almost lost. So there is a need to somehow maintain ties. And in order to achieve this goal, one of the proposals can be establishing a platform, like a social network application for mobile phones. And through this app, we can be in touch with our graduates abroad. And it will be also like a political leverage for Russia as well in the future. Thirdly, there is a need also for an online database for high quality education materials. It means that we should gather together best practices, best maybe short courses in some key areas that we need, in some maybe IT technology, maybe in, again, media coverage, in social media coverage, and we'll have a database, we'll have a bank of courses, and different universities will have an opportunity to share these courses online, remotely, without the need to come to a particular host country. Then, official database for media outlets. Again, as Professor Danilo Rothberg mentioned, that there is no cooperation between media. Here is a possible way forward to create an online database, like kind of BRICS TV, but maybe more diverse, maybe more, not like only television, but also for social networks, for news agencies, for newspapers, where regularly updated materials will come up, and which this platform could be used by different journalists from different BRICS countries. There will be no need to come to a particular country to film a report, to take interviews. This information will be uploaded here on this database, and there will be an opportunity to exchange direct and objective information. Then there is a need to launch short-term courses for employees of different ministries and news agencies in order to prepare people how to cover not only political events and declarations, but also cooperation at lower levels, not only education, but also other spheres. And finally, there is important to work on image making to make BRICS more famous, more popular among younger generations. There is a need to launch these 5 aspects and to promote them via Telegram channels in Russia, via social networks, in order to make people aware of opportunities, not only going abroad to a certain university, but using BRICS instruments, BRICS tools to study. And coming to the conclusion, why all that is important. First of all, it will boost student exchange, and Russia will be able to attract new talents and to succeed in achieving its national goals, its national projects that were launched in 2025. We have 19 new national projects, and in order to succeed, we need to exchange experience with our friendly countries, with our allies, and it's essential to promote educational cooperation and avoid any kind of brain drain. So we need to cooperate with the BRICS partners. There is also a need for digital transformation. We can cooperate with our partners in terms of introducing AI to education, using new tools, and all that will contribute to the export of Russian education. We have also a national goal to boost and to make more students come to Russia. And if we launch new programs with our BRICS partners, it means that we have 9 BRICS partners. More students will come to our country if we have what to give them. Then we will be able to form new business partnerships. Once we have a transparent system, once we have everything put in place, then business will participate in elaborating courses and elaborating programs, and we will have more business partnerships. And finally, we will contribute to the development of BRICS from below, not only at summits, but also at person-to-person level. Thank you very much for your attention. Here are my contacts, Telegram, and my email address. If you're interested in TASS in Spanish, there is also a link to its Telegram channel. Thank you very much for your time. I'll be eager to answer the questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton, for your presentation. And now I have the privilege to invite Mr. Igor Patrick, journalist, columnist from Folha de S.Paulo, and correspondent for the South China Morning Post, to address the topic of challenges of covering China from Brazil and Latin America. Thank you very much for being here with us today, Igor.
That's my pleasure. Can everyone hear me? I think it's working. Well,
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Igor. Despite my name, I'm not Russian. I'm Brazilian. And yeah, so I was under the impression that this presentation would be in Portuguese. I had some PPT ready, but since we're mostly doing it, entirely doing it in English, I would just stick to the notes I have here on my computer. And yeah, if there's time available after the session, we can always talk and discuss some of the topics I'm going to be talking about here. So let's try to build the plane while flying, shall we? Let's just start the time here because I don't want to go over my time. So a little bit about me. I'm a journalist. I graduated at the Pontifical Catholic University of Minas Gerais, PUC Minas. And I also have 2 master's degrees in China. The first one in China Studies with a specific concentration in politics and international relations at the Yanqing Academy of Peking University. The second one in Global Affairs through the Schwarzman Scholars Program at Tsinghua University. I've been covering China for 11 years now. In Brazil, I've worked for Estadão, O Globo, CBN, which is an all-news radio station. Today, I also have a weekly column and a newsletter in Folha de S.Paulo, the newspaper of record in Brazil. And I've been also working for a while for the South China Morning Post. For those who don't know, the South China Morning Post is probably the main English-speaking media outlet covering China today that is not part of the state apparatus in China. It's an independent private newspaper based in Hong Kong with bureaus all over the world. I had the privilege to work as a correspondent for SCMP in Washington from 2023 to 2025. And since June, I have been appointed the first Latin American correspondent for SCMP in 122 years of history. I also have a bit of an academic background. I was a senior scholar at the Wilson Center, which is a congressional think tank in Washington, where I wrote a book about Chinese media strategies in Latin America. So I understand that we are talking mostly about BRICS, although BRICS is sort of broadens the topics that I usually follow, of course, as a China journalist. I'm going to talk later about BRICS and mostly about the challenges and the opportunities for those interested in uncovering China. For BRICS specifically, I can try to comment really briefly on the topic when we address how the coverage of the summit here in Rio a couple of months ago was. But regarding China, and I think this is true for people in China and for people outside of China, which is the topic here, I think like journalists, professional journalists face several challenges covering it for sure. Of course, the main one I would say is access restrictions and censorship. I think for anyone who follows China, they know that there is a lot of monitoring and self-censorship and state censorship when you cover some topics. There's also some control in terms of like the limited amount of visas that the embassies and the consulates grant every year, which makes very difficult for journalists, especially journalists from the global south, to cover China topics. Most media outlets, and this is not exclusively in the global south, I think this is a worldwide phenomenon. We have been struggling with budget problems. Newsrooms across the world have been shrinking for the past 15 years at least, a direct phenomenon of the internet and news being available for free for so many years on the internet. And for smaller media outlets in the global south, like sending a correspondent to China, dealing with all these barriers and the financial hardships to cover China from there, makes it like very often impossible for most media outlets to do it. Today, Brazil like has, I believe, 3 correspondents in China, like formally registered correspondents with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's Folha de S.Paulo, the newspaper where I write my column, but also O Globo, and I believe there is a correspondent for Brasil 247, which is a left wing or left leaning media outlet here in Brazil. I think in common, all 3 journalists, despite being excellent journalists covering a plethora of different topics, there is a problem of proficiency in Mandarin. And of course, this is essential, although insufficient, because I think, like, of course, like learning the language is a big part of understanding the country, but there is also a need to understanding the cultural nuances, especially when it comes to China, which is so radically different from everything we are used to. Also, knowledge on the deep historical context and the complexity of the Chinese political system and society, something that particularly I feel that requires years of study and immersion. Even though I have 2 masters in China, I feel like I know nothing about the country. And there is always more to learn. Every time that I feel that I'm learning something, I realize that I know absolutely nothing. There is this saying among sinologists that when you arrive in China for the first time, you want to write a book in your first week, in your first month. You maybe consider writing a paper at the end of your first year. You'll realize that you cannot even write a single sentence. And this speaks volumes on the complexity of the issues there if you want to tackle in a professional way. So yeah, I think all of these skills are extremely important, and they are fundamental, especially if you're trying as a journalist to interpret official communications. Chinese can be very coded. It's a constant challenge, I would say, because like when you're reading Chinese, it's a very poetic language where a character or maybe an expression can have several meanings, and it's very easy to lose sight of the full picture when trying to translate it in the proper sense of the verb, but also I think in a more figurative way. For the Chinese, it makes perfect sense, because if you read a book in Chinese, like it's usually beautifully written in a very poetic language, but for official communication, unless you're very familiar with like the communist jargon and the way some government agencies and bodies work and communicate, for here, I mean, I wouldn't say Brazil is part of the West, but for geographical reasons, let's just assume it is. For here in the West, where the tradition in media is more straightforward, that can be quite challenging. Access to sources in China is also a huge thing, not only for the obvious reasons, which is government control, but also because I think even private companies in China are not used to have a PR department, for example. So very often as a journalist, when you reach out to them, they will struggle to understand who is going to be the spokesperson to talk to you, and if they have like some information ready for media. Of course, like for when it comes to inform local audiences, and by local I mean in my case, of course, like Brazil, to talk about China, there is competition also from the state media narrative, which is important. I think everyone should follow, but not necessarily focus on all possible angles and scenarios. So this is also a new thing for us to take into consideration. And if we're talking about BRICS specifically, as I promised, I don't have much experience in covering BRICS unless when they have something related to China. But talking a little bit about the summit here in Rio, I think BRICS still suffers from the lack of institutionalization, and this is not a problem from the Brazil being a host only, but also I think is okay. Sorry, I think there was a problem. I thought there was a problem with my computer, but I'll just proceed. That's not a problem for Brazil as a whole. So it wasn't a problem for China or even Russia. I think BRICS, and this is by default, remains something very informal. And this lack of institutionalization, it's quite challenging as well, in the sense that there is not a permanent secretariat. So when you need information, for example, from other summits, it's often very difficult to get. You have to visit each year's website to see what was agreed there, to get the full declaration. Most of the agreements and also the media resources, they rely on the resources provided by the host country. I think Brazil did a fairly good job in this sense this year, because it was building upon the experience it got from hosting G20 last year. But it can still be a bit difficult to find information, especially in other languages than not the language spoken at the host country. And also, because there is no institutionalization, I feel like different parts of this whole thing that we now call BRICS, they have difficulties in communicating with each other. So just to give you an example, like covering Dilma at the NDB, like the process of applying for like a media accreditation was completely different from the summit, which was completely different from all the other side events that we had here in Rio. But at the same time, like I talked a lot about the difficulties, but I also want to talk about the opportunities and the advantages for those listening to us and interested in covering China or covering BRICS more broadly, because I assume we're going to have some journalism students in our audience. I think it works both ways, right? Like the lack of expertise in Brazil on tackling these issues, on covering China, covering BRICS, also means that there's less competition. And I think if you're a good journalist, and if you start building sources and building a network of people related to these topics, it can be very powerful in the sense that you're going to have access to a number of exclusive stories and there's so much to cover every day. It's impossible for just one person or even 10 people. That's why I keep insisting with students mostly to focus on this, to not overlook BRICS or China, because there is demand for this kind of content and very few people doing it on a daily basis. So it can be highly rewarding if you decide to invest time in getting ready to cover these issues. So developing relations, it's extremely important. Going beyond what is obvious is also important. I think, like the Pew Research Center in Washington, a few months ago, they released a new batch of this poll that they conduct every year, and they were checking on perceptions on China here in Brazil. And something that wasn't explicitly there, but then I had access to the full report and I had the opportunity to talk to the researchers, is that increasingly China and therefore BRICS, these are topics that have become extremely polarized as part of the general trend for polarization trend in Brazil. So if you support the current government, you tend to support China. If you support the former government, you tend to support the US. And this polarization can lead to a very dichotomic way of seeing reality, I would say. If we tend to stick to this trend, I think we end up like missing a lot of important topics. So going beyond what is obvious and try to breach this polarization to find what really matters, it's extremely important as well, not only for us as professionals, but also for our audiences. And in the same vein, I would say like finding diverse sources as well. It's something fundamental for journalists, for readers. So I mentioned that like professional journalists now, like from private media, now have to compete with state media, Chinese state media, publishing content in their local languages. And although this can be challenging, this is also an opportunity, I think, for everyone to have access to how China analyzes and see things. I'm not part of a group of journalists who say that we should totally disregard state media. Quite the contrary, because in China, very often they are usually the only ones with access to the room, so they will bring, although I wouldn't say biased, but like they will bring like a unique side, which is the government side. If you are serious about following China, you cannot pretend that the state doesn't exist. And also, like, I think like our time is almost like ending, so I'll just leave a few tips for those listening to us, maybe considering doing BRICS coverage or China coverage. Try to go beyond journalism or even learning languages. In the case of China specifically, there is so much to cover about China that I feel that like if you're too focused on a specific part of the China coverage, you're gonna miss the big picture. So I would encourage everyone to focus on economics, but also in politics, in culture, in history, and now, of course, when it comes to China technology, it is so fundamental that it's impossible to ignore. I also think that listening to Chinese voices is extremely important. So on social media, like having accounts on WeChat, Weibo, Douyin, and so many other social media networks in China, it's essential. But also try to talk to Chinese professors. Like it's not usually as easy as it is to maybe send an email to a professor specializing in China studies in the US or Europe, but those perspectives, they matter a lot. And for those here in Brazil listening to us, I think valuing our expertise on China affairs is also something that enriches the coverage. That's something that I try to do often. compared to other countries in Latin America, I think we are fortunate enough to have several professors and scholars focusing on China issues now. So whenever possible, try to listen to them, because they usually bring a fresh perspective from a Brazilian point of view that will certainly interest your readers, your audience as a whole. And finally, I think like some long-term perspectives, Chinese is a very difficult language, but I think it's essential if you want to understand China. Not only in the sense of communicating with people in China, but also to understand how the Chinese think. I think the language is a reflection of this very complex way of analyzing reality. And investing in language skills will be fundamental to navigate this new area that we are just entering. This new Cold War, as some people have been putting. And in the same vein, continue education to produce regional and independent reporting with greater impact. Well, I think I went over my time by 2 minutes, so I'll stop here. And if we have time, I can answer questions right after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. Thank you for the candid and insightful reflections on media coverage of China in the Latin American context. And now let's move to our next speaker, to Valeriia Gorbacheva, Deputy Head of the BRICS Expert Council Russia and Head of the Multilateral Strategic Project Office at HSE University. She will talk about, her topic will be Beyond the Myth, Understanding BRICS. So, Valeriia, welcome.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for this opportunity on behalf of International Office of HSE University and the BRICS Expert Council Russia. I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm very glad that students already joined us for this important topic for today's discussion. I'll try to be very quick, but still my presentation is more like a populist lecture for students rather than for a serious discussion, but still I hope it will be interesting for all the guests of today's webinar. So today we will talk about myths about BRICS, because even if you are working within this union for decades, you still may be interpreting something a little bit wrongly. So let's try to check what's going on actually within BRICS on the very top level. Usually we'll start from busting the myths about BRICS. It's the most useful thing about talking about BRICS from the very start with the students. And usually, even if you are very top high-level decision maker, some of them are usually named BRICS as an organization. I hope everyone, and especially our students, know that BRICS actually is an informal union, and the special feature of this union is that it doesn't have any secretariat or headquarters. So we never talk about BRICS as an organization, and unfortunately, a lot of media preferring using this word organization regarding BRICS. It's not clearly, because it's an informal union, a group, an association like G20, but not an organization. The second thing is that usually from Western countries, we hear that BRICS is something like a political union, a military political alliance as NATO. Again, wrong, because BRICS possessing itself as a platform for collaboration. And it is never was designed against something, against Western countries, against I know, some architecture of global world order, but it is a platform for collaboration. First of all, it is a dialogue of countries who are share the common interests, the common traditions, the common global agenda, and the common idea of a better future for all countries, not for only the BRICS itself. Of course, you know that the China is the most powerful economically member of BRICS, but we never possessed something like that China is a leader of BRICS or anyone else. because all the decisions are made by consensus. If you're asking whatever is not, yes, for example, countries, they are not able to gain the consensus for any question. For example, like India and China conflict on territory, always consensus. If not, this question is not on the agenda. So it's about unifying positive agenda gained by consensus anytime. On the edge of appearing BRICS, it was very close by the format to the G7. And most of experts, they possess BRICS as a closed club also than BRIC. But now you can see that the enlargement of BRICS show us that actually this is a big process which is open for all. If you are even not a member of BRICS, but you still able to join the format of dialogue within like outreach format or BRICS Plus format, any of this kind, or become a partner of BRICS, which actually is a new thing on the BRICS agenda from the last year. And BRICS never imposes sanctions against anyone. They do not make fake news regarding our topic. They do not possess information wars against any partner. We still prefer to work with anyone. Despite sanctions, despite political agenda, we work even with the Western countries and are open for cooperation because we are our dialogue is based on the international law and the Charter of the United Nations, and we are open for collaboration on every level. And one more myth is that as BRICS was created as an economic union, of course, like maybe it will dismiss an International Monetary Fund or World Bank. No. Of course, the BRICS started with economy, but actually the main goal is to enrich global agenda in all spheres, not only in economic one. And most of journalists, experts, some young experts especially, when they're talking about BRICS, they usually start with this guy, Jim O'Neill, possessing that he is actually invented BRICS. No. Yeah, he is a very great economist. He actually made a great thing in 2001. He just made a small analysis and proposed to Western economies BRIC countries as emerging market economies and the better way to invest their own funds for Western economies. But actually, he was right that then over the next 10 years, the weight of BRICS grown. And today, the BRICS possess a global economic impact on it's actually the thing. His forecast actually works as the best as he can. And in 2021, he told that his primary goal was to make a case for changing the framework for global economic governance, and what actually he did. But he is not the man who invented BRICS, but he made the better PR action of all the times for our countries, because he actually invented the acronym BRIC. But when we're talking about the origins of BRIC, we're of course talking about Evgeny Primakov, distinguished diplomat, outstanding diplomat from Russia, who proposed in 1998, 10 years before Jim O'Neill, the idea of Russia-India-China triangle. He possessed that it's a diplomatic rank. It's not a strategic dialogue, because actually still RIC usually gather together to discuss like a global agenda, more politically, less economy and humanitarian affairs, but still he proposed these to start the cooperation within these three great powers as an important element of multilateral network diplomacy, working in the interests of establishing a fair world order. Again, fair world order. And if we will get more time, we will dive into the BRICS evolution, its history. But still, if you are like starting to know about BRICS a little bit more, you just need to focus on the most important epochs in its evolution, like steps. For example, the first summit in 2009 by the initiative of Russia, like the creation of NDB in 2015, the first enlargement with South Africa in 2010. Of course, the measures to compete the pandemic in 2020, when the NDB created its special emergency fund, actually helped BRICS economies to survive within pandemic. And the enlargement of NDB in 2001, 2003, and of course the later enlargement of BRICS. But again, it's, we can spend here dozens of hours to discuss this, maybe for next couple of lectures in the future. What about media, actually? Usually we use some funny pictures to show how actually Western countries possess BRICS. How do they prefer to use this image? Still, it's like something like that. Something very unclear. Some small leaders trying to put their own agenda.
I guess we have an audio problem here.
Valeriia, we can't hear you.
Valeriia, do you hear us? You're having trouble with your audio. We are waiting a few moments to Valeriia to double check her audio settings.
Am I audible?
Yes, I think now
fine.
we go.
Yeah, something goes wrong with microphone. Again, if somebody asking you about what actually BRICS, or trying to insist that BRICS is actually nothing, or just one of the numerous political dialects, just enumerate the number of international organizations and associations where BRICS are members, starting from UN G20 to Mercosur to African Union, and so on and so on. By the way, before the last enlargement of BRICS this year, the quota for BRICS in the IMF, so the vote, the blocking vote, almost exceeded 15%. So at least you know that 15% makes you gives you veto vote in IMF. So it also shows that BRICS countries actually possess the high level, the interest of the whole South, the whole global South, the emerging economies, the global majority, the new item which we are using in international relations. And of course, you shouldn't forget about that BRICS encompasses 2 members of the UN Security Council. As for the features and figures, so everyone knows that today will still encompasses like at least half of global population, almost half a global population, and the 33% of world's territories. Is these facts you should know if you are interested in BRICS. Just check if you are not still not confident about BRICS global role in economy and trade and so on. And for those who are not, for example, aware of what actually BRICS consists of, you should know that there are three key pillars of cooperation. It's policy and security, economy and finance, and culture and humanitarian exchanges. So BRICS is actually based on three big pillars of cooperation, and on each pillar there are different levels of cooperation, starting from ministerial to the lower level, like for this seminar, for example, yes, or some students' initiatives. Here are just some of the initiatives which are working with these three pillars. Maybe the most important in economy, it's economic strategy for partnership, for BRICS partnership. And for students might be interesting, like BRICS Network University, like BRICS Game, numerous forums for young scientists, young diplomats, and so on and so on. And actually, if we are talking about the structure of cooperation, you know that the high level, it's like meeting of leaders, annual meeting of leaders, where they discussing the declaration, their like main points of cooperation each year. Then we have informal meetings on UN Assembly or within G20, the annual meetings of ministries together with working groups, and forums and conferences, schools, seminars, and so on and so on. And actually, we are on that level, but still, it is one of the most important levels within BRICS, because more than half initiatives, they grew in BRICS from upside down, from down to the top. A lot of initiatives were proposed on the level of experts, on the level of youth, on the level of civil society. For example, the first idea of the NDB, of the New Development Bank, raised on the level of expertise. In 2014, the participants of BRICS Academic Forum, they proposed the first idea of NDB. And then actually we have the first institution within BRICS grow to the official level. The same with BRICS Network University, the same with the system for global monitoring, and so on and so on. Again, if you will have time, please take a deeper dive what actually BRICS is doing on, because whatever level of cooperation you possess, youth, civil society, experts, or media, there is still a format for cooperation on your level. For example, there is media forum, BRICS Media Forum, annual BRICS Media Forum, numerous meetings of journalists, and I know that Russia also invite journalists from BRICS countries on an annual basis to come to Russia to know more about our country, our policy, even within BRICS, not only to give them like a clear picture what is actually going on within our country, despite the fake news and so on and so on. So that's a great idea of how to cooperate despite all the difficulties, all the challenges we faced on the media landscape. Very quickly about actually the thing where BRICS grew from, BRICS economic cooperation. The idea which started BRICS and helped to form the BRICS look itself today. And the main document, if you would like to know more about economic partnership, is a BRICS economic partnership strategy. This year, Brazil drafted the third version of this strategy, and it is quite interesting to, to look forward what main economic areas of cooperation are developing within BRICS. It's sustainable trade, investment, it's digital economy, sustainable growth, and so on and so on. These like also the pillars of economic cooperation within BRICS. You should know if you're trying to write about BRICS or just to know more about this union. Of course, the new development bank, why it is important. Again, this is the first international institution within BRICS, the first and the only for now. And it is important to know that it has headquarters in Shanghai, and it also has some regional representations. Yes, for example, Indonesia joined BRICS last year, but there is still no Indonesian office of NDB, but I'm sure it will be. And for today, the NDB already covered 120 projects with $39 billion financing approved. So it's a great number of different sustainable and infrastructure projects for BRICS economies, but not only for BRICS economies, but also for the regions where these countries are located. Because these projects usually bind with sustainable green development, with water resources, with something that is actually needable not only for BRICS, one BRICS nation, but for all nearly based regions and countries. When we're talking about BRICS, again, a lot of business issues is appeared. Even on media loves this topic, usually because the business makes the most interesting projects, because these projects actually drive in our economies. And the BRICS Business Council is the institution, like the body which is working on that. Our businesses, small enterprises, big enterprises, are working together within BRICS. And there are also a lot of working groups. Usually small enterprises, they came to experts on different forums and they're asking, oh my gosh, I would like to sell water in Russia. I'm from China. And they're expecting us to answer the question how these small enterprises could join the BRICS, the big BRICS market. So actually on this question should BRICS Business Council answering. And one more important thing, that there is also the women role in BRICS, and the BRICS Women Business Alliance is actually possessing how to enhance the role of women in and its participation in developing our economies and driving our economic growth. And there are a lot of interesting cases within BRICS women business, or BRICS business led by women, which is encouraging more and more development within BRICS on economic level. You've talked also about challenges and just quick ideas how to overcome all those challenges which are BRICS actually facing with. Of course, we're trying to boost integration on any level. So each hour meeting is possessed to boost integration in trade, foreign investment, financial markets, but also in humanitarian sphere, in science, in technology, in innovation. The most important is to, for example, for now, to overcome the barriers in trade. So the most important thing for BRICS economies is to assist to digital trade and data exchange, to optimize global supply chains, to assist to inclusive growth, and of course to consolidate the international regulatory institutions, and to boost the common positive agenda within the global architecture institutions. We've already talked about different formats, but still you should know and remember about different formats of cooperation with BRICS. The first idea came to, I guess, Russia and South Africa, when they invited the non-BRICS member countries to the summit, like for friendly dialogue, for those partners who are eager to cooperate with BRICS, and call that format like outreach. The South Africa in 2000, I guess, 18, they invited the numerous number of African countries to join the BRICS dialogue, like even for once for the summit, but still it was like a historic moment because you know that South Africa possesses itself as a leader of the whole African continent within BRICS. And the second big issue was within BRICS Plus initiative made by China in 2017 and later. They also invented an idea to invite for dialogue those countries who are, for example, chairing in BRICS in big international integration institutions, or, for example, actually its institutions itself by themselves. So BRICS started to cooperate with SEO, with APEC, with the different integration institutions to look for the like synergy of those integration mechanisms, not to be in vacuum or like be on the lonely island, but be integrated in the whole global agenda and working with partners who are eager to work with BRICS. And maybe for the last slide, I would like to remind you that for now, BRICS is already not like a 5. Yes, the 5 countries are the core of BRICS, but now we're talking about 10.5 members of BRICS because still Saudi Arabia has unclear status. Many journalists, many experts, they avoid Saudi Arabia, but for example, Russian Minister of Affairs, they still possess Saudi Arabia as a member of BRICS because these guys actually, they come to different levels of meetings, high-level meetings, for example, in economy, on finance. Yes, they do not involved in all spheres of cooperation because they still do not realized what actually BRICS can bring to Saudi Arabia. But maybe sometime they will fully integrated. Of course, there's some policy with the Western countries, with the Saudi Arabia policy, but still we are counting like 11 BRICS members country and 10 BRICS partner countries. For today, it's Belarus, Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Cuba, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, Uzbekistan, Nigeria, and Vietnam joined the last. So today, we also know about like 40 countries more willing to join BRICS. The last was like Laos also tried to investigate whether it can join BRICS somehow. Maybe the only man who wants to join the BRICS more than any other is like France. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's his like a political goal to be a bridge between BRICS and Western countries. But I'm not sure that France is the country that can build the bridge between the Western countries and the global majority. I hope that was useful for you. Thank you very much. And if you want to change the world, just study BRICS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valeriia, for your presentation. And now we are going to start a very brief Q&A section. And I would like, first of all, to say that unfortunately, due to time restrictions, our guest Igor Patrick had to leave us for attending a newsroom meeting timely. So we will have 2 questions now addressed to Anton, Danilo, and Valeriia. And I will start with the first questions. And then Oksana will address the second one. So my first question to our 3 remaining guests is the following. What role can students, researchers, and journalism educators play in promoting a more critical and balanced coverage of multilateral partnerships like BRICS, and how universities and also media outlets can cooperate and be part of such efforts. I think we could start with Danilo and then moving to Anton and then Valeriia, please.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question. Well, briefly, I would just mention that the teaching, the background and the context, of course, will be very relevant. So all the background in sociology and political science and international relations and journalism students and educators would have to expand their horizons in order to give to provide an understanding of not only the journalistic techniques but also mainly the political knowledge on how national strategies are moving towards the BRICS integration, and also study history and social sciences in general. There would be the need for a long study program in sociology, and I think it should be perhaps one of the most important topics in teaching journalism, international journalism. So it could be a way of fostering the teaching of international journalism, delivering a focus, a deep focus on the BRICS and the BRICS integration. Yes, thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Danilo. Let's hear for Anton in the same question.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I believe I fully agree with Professor Danilo, and I think that students can play a crucial role in terms of critical understanding and in terms of like giving new stimulus to the coverage of BRICS in media. First of all, because students can think out of the box. Sometimes we work in certain frames, we are under certain limits as representatives of state media or some outlets that have certain guidelines, certain approaches how to cover these or that aspects, whereas students, while they're studying at university, they can be like an independent journalists, independent investigators, and then can ask maybe some tricky questions, they can question more, they can maybe somehow provoke maybe more fruitful discussions out of typical standards that we're having in our big state-driven media. And it's very important, and universities, at the same time, they can provide fertile grounds, they can invite maybe more speakers, they can create events, they can maybe launch some workshops for students who study journalism, maybe give them opportunities to lead their own reports, own journalistic investigations without being somehow influenced by, I don't know, by business, by companies, by governments who have money. So university can be like a judge in this area, and students who are studying can try to explore new areas and try to enhance this critical analysis of BRICS and more balanced coverage.
Thank you very much. And let's now hear from Professor Valeriia Gorbacheva about her perspectives on this issue of education and academic cooperation.
Thank you very much. Completely agree with the colleagues. You know that the most promising ideas and initiatives, they were actually presented on the level of youth, because youth is free with mind, and usually they are not afraid of inventing new mechanisms of cooperation, and they are boosting this cooperation on its level. You know about the BRICS Youth Summit, you know about the forums of youth, you know that these guys, they are fostering the BRICS agenda and like playing a role of BRICS ambassadors in every country, even if it is not a BRICS member. For example, within numerous BRICS schools, we are building a future BRICSologists, future experts, journalists, leaders of opinion who actually will build a better future together within BRICS. And this is our future, so we should make as much as possible to educate you, to provide you with the most opportunities. And actually, BRICS is the platform where you have all the opportunities to grow up the world leaders, the world future leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your rich and engaging responses. And the next question is, how do you think, what are the key factors, political, editorial, or maybe institutional, that shape the tone and depth of BRICS coverage in your national media?
I think we can follow with the same order, starting
Yeah.
with Danilo and then, okay, Anton.
Okay. Well, thank you, Oksana, for the question. Well, I would say that research again shows a diversity and the tone and the size of the Brazilian coverage. But in general, we can find a very divisive framing in which the more conservative newspapers, for example, adopt a very critical tone against the BRICS countries and show a stance towards being more cautious and aligning with in some cases, with the United States interests and delivering a very strong criticism against the BRICS and a way of getting more distant from the Western policies. And we also can note the progressive newspapers adopting a more favorable tone towards the BRICS countries, showing that, arguing that Brazil can expand, should expand their bonds, its bonds with the BRICS countries, because that would be good for the economy. So the economic reasons for strengthening the connection with the BRICS countries would be the argument posed by some progressive newspapers favoring the BRICS integration. And as the conservative media plays a larger role, I guess, in the media landscape, I would say that in some cases the conservative bias was more dominant than the progressive one. Although we can find a balance between them in many other occasions. So just the final line about that, I think that would be, again, room for improving the coverage in Brazil as well, following in general the same lines that I presented before. So I guess that's it.
Thank you, Anton. And what about you?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think I fully agree with Danilo Rothberg, with Professor, that there is a mixture of factors that actually shape the tone of BRICS coverage in the international media. I would like to highlight one of the most obvious factors is geopolitical factor. I believe that none of the countries wants to somehow damage its reputation in the eyes of the Western world. As we mentioned, BRICS is just about platform of dialogue. It doesn't have any legally biased documents. So all the countries, they want to talk, to coordinate, but not to damage its positions in terms of partnerships with other states. I like to bring an example from my professional career when I worked during the 2024 Kazan summit, BRICS summit in Kazan, where we met Nicolas Maduro at the airport. The Minister of Communications told us that we could ask whatever we want, we could ask any questions, but the only taboo topic was relations with Brazil and Brazilian veto on the entrance of Venezuela to the number of BRICS partners. So that is the point. They didn't want to fuel this geopolitical tension with Brazil. they didn't want to highlight it anyhow. So that's one of the areas. And traditionally, media are influenced by ideological perspectives. We have left-wing media, right-wing media, and depending on these aspects, different types of media outlets will follow its own strategy. Like left-wing maybe will try to support BRICS, right-wing maybe not. It depends. Again, business structures. If business tries to maybe have more incentives in the developing world, in South-to-South cooperation, then these business enterprises will give more money to media to get proper coverage and to attract maybe more investments, attract more capital. And again, also it depends on the audience, on the expectations. If we have electoral period in certain kind of states, we have pre-electoral campaign, we have this electoral race, then again, if BRICS is favorable for the country, then BRICS will be portrayed as something good. If it is negative, then of course it will be like a disadvantage. It depends on many factors, on political aspect right here, right now, what we're having in our life. Then I think it's very flexible. We cannot say that it's stable. Factors are changing overnight, and today we have one set of factors, tomorrow we have electoral period, there will be another set of factors. We have Trump, there is one set of factors, then Trump goes away. In 2 years' time, we'll have another set of factors. So it's a short-term analysis. We cannot think over years. So that's it.
Thank you, Anton. Valeriia, please.
I would just add that for the journalists, the future journalist or the current journalist, maybe the best way to write about BRICS is to go to the country and to write about it from the inside. Because when we're talking about each other, it's almost impossible to write the right things just because you don't know what is happening in the country. That's why a lot of journalists come to the elections, to the different countries, come to the summits to gain the most, the freshest information, the clearest information from the very top decision makers. Just look how long the press conferences of the leaders took place. Just use this opportunity. Come to the different exchange programs, especially in Russia. That will be the great opportunity to you to develop your career as a journalist.
Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of today's seminar. We thank all of our speakers for their expertise and all of you, our audience, for your attention and participation. And also I would like to thank Francisco Belda, my co-moderator, for organizing and hosting this seminar. We hope today's session has deepened your understanding of BRICS media coverage and encouraged new conversations and collaborations going forward. We wish you all a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you at future seminars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oksana. Thank all of our participants, our distinguished guests, Professor Danilo Rothberg, Professor Anton Vilchinsky, Professor Valeriia Gorbacheva. Thank you very much for being here with us. As you know, this event was a joint initiative by Unesp's School of Architecture, Arts, Communication and Design, Faac, and the HSE University Department of Media from St. Petersburg. And we deeply appreciate the engaging of our students, our communities, and I hope to see you again in a future event. Thank all of you, and by now we are finishing our streaming from YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.